Hey everyone, this is Chris, and you're listening to One Cross Radio, and today's episode is not my own. It's actually an episode of the Always Awesome Redeemed Otakus podcast, who I very thankfully got to be a guest on a couple weeks ago. And Becky from Redeemed Otaku has been wonderful and allowed me to share that episode of her podcast on my podcast. So all that being said, I really hope you enjoy the episode. I had a blast being on, and I can't wait to be on again and have Becky on here, and hope you all enjoy. God bless and take care.
Welcome to another episode of Redeemed Otaku, your mega evolving podcast for discussion and reviews on all things anime related from a Christian worldview. I am your gym leader host, Bex. And with me today, accepting his starter Pokémon, is Chris from One Cross Radio.
That was amazing. That was awesome.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This is very exciting.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Let's get to know ya.
All right. Well, yep. My name's Chris. I run the podcast One Cross Radio that focuses on, I say, Christianity and pop culture, but I'm realizing we're slowly becoming more of a slice of life, because I'll talk to my cousin in England about politics, because, well, things are shambles over there, apparently. And I'll...
Shambles everywhere, I think.
Oh, it's shambles everywhere indeed. And then talking to some both Christian and non-Christian friends when I have them on about their life experiences and politics often comes up. But then I also do just love looking at movies. I've been a huge movie fan for my entire life. Star Wars is like my first nerd love. I'm going to get weirdly sentimental, but my father, who passed away like right before I turned 12, he showed me the original trilogy of Star Wars was the first non-cartoon movies I ever saw. And because he loved them, it's a sentimental thing for me.
Sure.
So it's... because of a love of Star Wars, it grew into a love of a lot of things nerdy. And we were spoiled in the 90s with amazing cartoons. Everybody raves about the 80s. I'm like, your Transformers was a toy commercial. My Transformers, sure, it had rats farting and stuff, but there was a story there. No. Beast Wars was amazing, but at points, because it is a kid's show, it's like, oh, farts. But the story there was some really good story.
I remember watching Beast Wars, but I don't remember that. So maybe I wasn't as loyal as you.
Well, I found it on YouTube, and then I got a family member got it for me for the DVDs for Christmas a couple of years ago. So I instantly rewatched like the whole series. I'm like, funny. I was out sick from work, so I'm like, I got plenty of time. Let's binge Beast Wars. Yeah. But yeah, we got spoiled in the 90s. Spider-Man, the show, Batman, the animated series, Justice League, X-Men. It was a great time to be a nerd in the 90s. Yeah. Not to the extent it is now, where nerd isn't niche anymore. It is like the big thing. Yeah. You know much more anime than I do. But in the 90s, it was like, you could name Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, and Pokemon. And then you kind of got Digimon and then Yu-Gi-Oh! But that was about it. That was like, what's that? And then now you're seeing so many references in so many things. Comics reference anime, movies reference anime. I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I know it's a reference, and that's awesome.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's funny because the kids nowadays that's what they're watching. They are watching anime. So, there goes a cat.
Well, and I really appreciated that point out, because you guys did a couple of panels at a con recently, and I was listening to those episodes, and when you guys were pointing out the tropes and all that, I'm like, oh dang, I've been watching anime tropes for years, and I wasn't even watching the show. Yeah. I could only get so far into Goku, taking up like 14 episodes to charge up his Kamehameha, and I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah. I feel like... what I remember of Dragon Ball when it was syndicated on American television, it's like I've watched multiple episodes, but they might have been the same episode, because the exact same thing was happening in each of those episodes that I watched. So
I got really inspired with when Faith and Fandom Volume 6 from Hector Mire dropped, there was a chapter about learning the biblical principle of patience, and he was using the example of Dragon Ball Z.
No way.
And then
I'm going to have to check that out. I've heard you mention that several times, and I need to check that out.
It's I will always read those books. They're awesome. And then after that, I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm going to give this another shot. And then I'd listen to it and watch it as I'm like making food or whatever. And there was one thing where it's like, the world's going to blow up in a minute. That lasted like 12 episodes.
The longest minute ever.
Seriously. It's just like, all right, I got to find the abridged version. I do not have the attention span for this.
That's like the series 24.
Right.
You know, like each hour was the hour of what's happening in that 24 hours. Yeah. So it would be interesting to watch Dragon Ball Z and kind of condense that 1 minute into a minute and see what actually is occurring. Like speed it up and be like, here's your minute. So.
Yeah. Oh, like I would love to see like Dragon Ball Z or something where I'm all down for slow burns. Out of like the Marvel Netflix shows, Daredevil season 1 was amazing. That's a great slow burn. Mm-hmm. But still, there's like later ones where it's like, you're just filling the episodes you got. Like, I'm not as big a fan of Doctor Who as I used to be, but I remember when I got into that, it's like, this is 12 episodes long. This is a short show in comparison to American shows or North American general shows. And I'm like, just do that. Just give me 12 or less digestible, like, throw me the content. I don't always want filler. Sometimes I do, but yeah.
All right. Well, we could keep going on that.
Oh my gosh, yeah, no.
Forever.
That is like a separate 5-part podcast. That is our 12 episode 1 minute things.
Exactly. Get down. Okay. Well, that was awesome. Since you are a professing Christian,
yes,
would you mind sharing with us your testimony?
Absolutely. So I came to faith when I was 4, and I say this in all love, as much as a 4-year-old can come to faith. Mm-hmm. But it became my own in my teens. After my father passed away, I kind of walked away from the faith. Not in a woe is me way, but I've had a lot of death in my life. I think at one point, like by the time I was like 15, I had been to something like almost 10 funerals. A lot of family had died. A lot of people I knew died. And then in my line of work, because I work in social ministry, death is a reality in there. But I always knew God was there and I knew God loved me. But at that time, around the time I was 12 or 13, I was like, I'm walking away. I'm done. Like, I know you're here, but like, you're letting people die. Yeah. The heck with this. Yeah. But God, I realized later, God never really left. He did let me go wander. But then a couple years later, it is purely a God thing. And it's eventually led to the name of the podcast and the website. I met some people who were Christians at a random show by a band called One Cross. They were playing at the old Edge 102 in downtown Toronto. And through meeting them modeling Christ, I came back to faith. Them putting up with the goth metal kid who had like the giant friggin' afro, the spiked bracelets, the skull rings, torn jean shorts on top of jean pants, the giant biker chain, like borderline homeless looking, like not knocking. It's people. I had people putting changing my hat if I was sitting down. I'm like, no, I'm not homeless. Or always getting asked for drugs where I'm like, I'm not a drug dealer either. No, so through them, God really pulled me back to him. I was baptized in 2008, served at a church for a number of years, running youth drop-ins. And that's where also get like preaching the word to both church youth and non-church youth was interesting, because that's where I started to really reconcile my nerddom with my faith, where it's like, if I'm referencing something, like, I can organically toss in a Walking Dead reference and I'm not forcing it because I'm watching this like you guys are. Here's a relatable point. Yeah. And then I've been blessed with a lot of great friends who have been an accountability group, but also some who are super nerdy. One of my buddies got me into Moon Knight, and I was like, if you're into comics, I can get more into comics. And then my buddy who's a pastor who's super into comics, like Steve, who's been on the podcast a lot, him and I will talk this stuff till we're blue in the face. And that's been wonderful. And over the past couple of years, as I haven't been working in a church, but in social ministry, but government funded, so it's also social services, finding things like you guys at Redeemed Otaku or Hector from Faith and Fandom, where it's like you can intersect your faith with your fandom or what you're into, and that's an avenue to engage people with, has been awesome. So I've even been able to talk to people as they're talking about this, and they're like, oh, you watch this? You're a Christian. Or it's like, I might not watch it, but here's a person who's got a really good shoulder on their heads with a good viewpoint. Check them out. And it's been interesting and fun.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, that gives us a little bit of what you do and who you are, so I appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. All right. Well, in case our listeners haven't figured it out yet, what we're talking about is Pokemon!
Yeah!
Yay! Pocket monsters!
And I'm so glad we're doing this one. Pokemon it was something I really geeked out on as a kid. Because I was in 5th grade, then 6th grade when the cards dropped. Then the Game Boy game dropped. I still remember having the Game Boy where you had, in North America, it was Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue, but in Japan it was Pokemon Red and Pokemon Green. And then there was the show, and then they were like, oh, we're going to make an in-between one, Pokemon Yellow, that has some stuff that reflect the show. So you'll have Pikachu following you around, and Team Rocket grunts will be Jesse and James instead.
Yeah. Yeah, so, that's awesome. Yeah, I had an interesting journey with Pokemon, because my brother was the big gamer, so my younger brother was the big gamer, so he had the Game Boy game. We started collecting the cards and playing, like, battling each other.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool. We enjoyed that, and I actually still have some of my cards from back then.
Nice.
Yeah. And what's funny is, I was raised conservative, fundamental Baptist, and me and my brother were already kind of on the verge of, oh, is this okay? We don't know if this is going to be acceptable or not. And then they use the word,
they evolve.
Evolution. Yeah, and they evolve. And so we're like, oh no, what if somebody hears us saying that my Pikachu's evolving to Raichu, So we took out the word evolve, and so when we played our card game, we used the word grow up.
Nice. That's clever.
Charmander grows up to Charmeleon.
Yeah.
Because we were so scared, we enjoyed it so much. We just didn't want it to be taken away from us, so.
Yeah, no,
I think
definitely.
That's pretty funny.
And that's a creative way to get around it, because like if someone's got it dead set in their mind, and I remember some of the attitudes at that time, even because I encountered it like just last year, I had to be like, no, this isn't bad. But where it's like, they're not going to sit and listen where you say Pikachu's going to evolve. It's like, no, there's a Thunderstone involved. They're not going to hear that point where it's like,
there's this magic item. Oh wait, no, not magic. Oh no. You got to come up with something else, not magic.
See, and that's where you can get the edge to Digimon, because they're like, it digivolved. And it's like, yes! What? Yeah, it's crazy enough that it works.
It's a digital monster.
Exactly.
Digital. It's not real.
It's not real. It's not, it's got its own dimension that we go to instead.
Exactly.
That's how you do it. It's a Narnia of Pokemon, kind of. But
right, there you go, Narnia. Just throw out Narnia and they'll be like, oh, okay.
Well, unless they're extreme fundamentalists, because then they're like, oh no, that's bad too.
Yeah.
Really? Anyways, that's a whole separate podcast.
I know, that's a whole nother topic. I love my fundamentalist brethren, though. So
yeah, no, it's coming from a place of love.
Absolutely.
If there's no love in the rebuke or even the light joking, then we need our attitudes checked.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, let's jump into this. I am going to read a quick synopsis that I wrote.
Awesome.
To bring our listeners up to speed. This is, we're reviewing Pokemon Origins, if I didn't say that. Yes,
yeah, I was going to say that's a good distinction. Pokemon the show, I'd say the regular show, that is the kid-friendly one. Not to say this one isn't child-watchable, because it is. Right. But this one is, I'd say this is the deep cut. This is the deep cut one. Because it's set up like the games, like the...
Yeah, very watchable. Because I think when we first started talking, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to review Pokemon because there's so much. What am I? And then you mentioned how it's only 4 episodes. I was like, all right, I can do that.
Yeah, it was either, it's like, well, we could do the movies. They're fun, but really, really cheesy. Or we could do this great mini series that's just 4 episodes.
Yeah, perfect. All right, so here's the synopsis. A hopeful young man named Red is sent on a mission to catalog all the Pokemon in his Pokedex. Along his journey, he helps others with their problems and learns more about Pokemon as he battles his way to become the Pokemon League champion. Spoilers!
Is it a spoiler when it's based on like a 20-year-old game?
I know, right? Oh, so there you go. There's your synopsis of the 4 episodes. It's great. Yay.
Yeah.
We love the show.
Oh yeah. I've got 0 complaints about the show. I'd watched it like when I recommended it to you. I was like, when was the last time I watched this? Oh yeah, like 3 months ago. So it was still pretty fresh. And then this week as I was watching, I'm like, it's so good. And legit, one moment I was like, I'm getting choked up. Like I'm going to tear up on the bus here. This is no good.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, so I'm going to... let me grab my phone. We're going to kind of cover just like the aesthetics. So like art direction, sound, voice acting. I'm going to pull up the Wikipedia article. All right, so this was... actually had 4 different directors for each episode. So episode 1 was Itsuro Kawasaki. Episode 2 was Yukio Kuroda. I know I'm butchering these names. Episode 3 is Hideo Takahashi, and episode 4 is Daiki Tomiyasu. Studio Production IG did episode 1. Zebek did episode 2 and 3, and OLM did episode 4. So I was like, I just kind of looked this up because I wasn't familiar with OLM. And they've got some pretty interesting... Most recent stuff is going to consist of a lot of Pokemon. Hello, cat. What are you doing? Get out of here.
Must be the dead set center of attention.
I know, right? Alrighty. So most of the stuff that OLM has done recently is going to be like, let's see, Future Card, Buddy Fight, a lot of Future Card stuff, Beyblade, Go-Go Tamagotchi, Yokai Watch. So a lot of those kind of game-related, shows, series. But one thing that kind of blew me away is one of their older works is back in 1997, they produced Berserk, which you're probably not familiar with it, but some of my listeners are probably familiar with it. Berserk is a very dark, highly rated, but very dark anime. So I just found that interesting that they were involved in that, some would call it a masterpiece, right. That show, and then they do this Pokemon, and now they're doing all these gaming shows and kind of kid-friendly, family-friendly shows. Well,
that was, I had a similar realization when I finally recognized, like, Robert Rodriguez, the director, like, I knew him from, like, Once Upon a Time in Mexico, Desperado, Sin City, and then it's like, oh, he did the Spy Kid movies. He did all 4 of the Spy Kid movies.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, what?
I'm like, that just blew me away.
Yeah, it's a weird juxtaposition where you're like, you go from this amazing dark but graphic series, and then Pokemon.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I watched it on Prime, Amazon Prime, because I could get a free trial because they have like a separate subscription for Pokemon.
Oh, okay.
So I did the free trial for Pokemon and watched through it. So it's available on Amazon Prime with the Pokemon subscription. And it was the English dub. Did you watch the English dub?
Yes. I have seen the Japanese dub. That was the way I originally saw it. In Canada, it's not on Prime, and there isn't the additional Prime, like Pokemon thing for Prime. So I got it off of iTunes, and they didn't give you the option for the Japanese dub, so it was just the English dub. But $10. It was $10 well worth it.
Sure, for sure. Yeah, so some of the English actors, Johnny Young Bosch is a popular one. He did the
Johnny Young Bosch!
Yeah, he
my
did
boy!
Brock.
I didn't know that. Sorry, I get excited anytime a Power Rangers guy shows up in anything because I'm like, yeah, Power Rangers. No, and that dude was awesome. For your fan base, if they're not Power Rangers up, he was Adam, the second Mighty Morphin Black Ranger, and then he was the Green Zeo Ranger and the first Green Turbo Ranger.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. My coworker is big into Power Rangers, so like when I listened to your episode of Power Rangers, you did like the breakdown.
Oh yeah.
Or whatever.
The
you went
dive.
through the whole thing. The deep dive. There you go.
Yeah.
I was like, here, Nick, you might want to listen to this. This will probably be right up your alley. So, yeah.
I got a good response to that one, and I've been requested a Godzilla one, which I'm working on slowly just because I deep dive into Godzilla almost whenever I talk about it, which when you were reading the directors here, I was going to say, like, you apologize for nothing. You're reading the Japanese names much better than I can. You're talking about butchering. I was terrible.
Yeah. I know I mispronounced a couple, but I whatever. I did the English. There you go.
You're doing what you can.
Doing what I can. Okay. But let's see, I wanted to make a note of Bryce Papenbrook was the voice of Red, which he has a pretty extensive voice acting history.
Oh, right
namely, he's Eren Yeager in Attack on Titan. That's probably what he's going to have the most current thing.
Right.
But he's also the voice of the greatest black swordsman, Kirito from SAO! Okay, so all the haters have shut us off now, so...
Hey, at least once every couple episodes, I'm like, don't at me. Let's all get along here.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right, and then, let's see... I'm looking to see who Blue voiced and see if he did anything that I recognize off the top here. He's been in a lot of stuff, but I think Red takes the cake on popular voice. Red and then Brock take the cake on their voice acting. So there you go. There's some quick commentary on just the voice acting and all that fun stuff.
And I found the performances good. At times I'd remember, because for the longest time all I had to watch was the Japanese dub, and I remembered the inflections, I remembered certain things, so I'm like, oh, this is weird in English, but no, they're nailing it, because you've watched much more anime than I do, but you can tell from what's a good dub and what's a terrible reading of the material.
Yeah. This one, you didn't notice any difference, like the mouth movements, the lip flaps or whatever, everything was just perfect. There was nothing that detracted from the show. So I'm watching it as if this is an American-made television show.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. The only comparison I have is watching a lot of the old Godzilla movies where you get the terrible English dubs where it's the mouth's moving and then the words come. And you're like, the words aren't even matching the facial expressions. That dude looks angry and this is a very happy sounding sentence.
Yeah. They're gonna kill us all!
Yay! It's like, we're not watching a Twisted thing here where that's happy. But the voice acting was really, really good.
Yep.
They did, everybody did a great job.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the art. I thought the battles were really cool.
Yeah.
Like the way they animated the attacks.
Oh yeah.
So cause like you said, this is like watching somebody play the game. This is just, we're going to play the game, and this is it animated. So when you're seeing like Mewtwo do Swift, you're like, oh, so that's what my Pokemon is doing when I play the game. And then the girl's commenting, it's super effective.
I love the little touches they did with that. And it's even a step up from the animated, like the long running animated show, or even some of the movies, where it's like when you're playing the game and it's like, it dodged. You just see it standing there, but then it's the text. Like, they animated it so well with the battles. Where I'm even thinking of the Charizard, Red's Charizard and Blue's Blastoise, where it's just like, it just sidesteps it and you're like, whoa!
Yeah. So that was really cool. The battles were engaging. The animation was great. High quality. Yeah, it was good.
If they would do something like this for every generation of games, because I only played up to Silver and Gold, because then I never got a new Game Boy, so then I couldn't keep up. But I would be like, do it. I'll watch everything. I know you're at like 500 and whatever thousand number Pokemon now, because I play Pokemon Go, and I'm like, this is just a squirrel now. Like, I'd still be in if you did it, but if you could do a series like this, like maybe not a million episodes long, but I'd still be in. It's really easy to get dialed into.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay, so anything else that you wanted to add on just art direction, music, anything like that? Can fall under that?
Actually, yeah. One of the things I loved that they did, because again, I think it ties into it being about the game and not the show, is that the Pokemon didn't, like, they made animal noises. They just kind of like roared or made like happy cooing noises. Or in the case
they didn't just repeat their name. Like,
no, exactly. Where it's
Charmander.
Where you're like, okay, that kind of works and it makes sense what you're going for, but I'm 30 years old at this point, like, and I'm not as dialed in as I used to be. Yeah. Whereas with this, it's like, if you did this, I'm in. But also, like, it let you emote more. The Pokemon themselves emote more. I found that helped you get more engaged. The moment that legit, like, I was tearing up at was the second episode, where like, you had the Marowak, and I feel like we're going to talk about this later. The Marowak sacrificed itself for the Cubone, and then later when it's the Marowak ghost, and it reunites with Cubone, and then Cubone's looking up, and you're just hearing the noises, and you're like, I'm feeling what you're feeling. Like, it's if it was just going like, Cubone, I'm like, it would be the same. But it's sad noise. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want to pick you up and hold you. But it also could be the pet owner in me. Like, Luna has made me change so much when I see animals in jeopardy now. I can't do it anymore.
Yep. Good point. So let's jump into kind of the like the character development, pacing, any plot holes or anything that we kind of want to nitpick at, I guess, if you want to call it that. So let's kind of start there. Sure. Do you want to start off with that?
Yeah, sure. I personally didn't have any plot hole issues, just because you knew it was borderline going for an anthology kind of thing, where it's like, all right, we can't show every battle. Heck, I was thinking about it in between the third episode and the fourth episode, like Victory Road, because I've played that would take like 5 episodes. We'd be getting in the Dragon Ball Z territory of nothing happening, because it's just every 2 feet you're bumping into like another person who wants to battle. Right. Or if you're to throw back earlier to the first episode to the second episode, when you're going through that tunnel in the game, unless you've got like the rappel on, you're bumping into a Zubat every 2 feet. Like the pacing worked really well. The character development worked, because then you can show how they've grown, but without it being like the baby steps along the way. Right. Red in episode 1 is very different from Red in episode 2, but it's a logical it's a logical evolution. You can flow with that.
Growing up.
Logical growing up. And in this case, it was like 2 months later.
Yeah.
They let their 10-year-old children just go off into the world.
Just go wander.
Just go wander and check in every couple months. Hopefully. Don't die or anything. Like, sure, go through perilous caves on a bike. Battle psychic Pokemon that throw your 100-pound Pokemon on you.
Right at you. Yeah.
Seriously. But, yeah, I couldn't see anything where I'm like, oh, this is a plot hole, or, oh, this is this. The logical flow to it worked. Pacing-wise, I'm like, you don't need to see every gym battle. You don't need to see all the Elite Four battle, because if it's just an episode of battles, that gets boring. Battles for battle's sake, unless there's, like, emotional weight to it.
Right.
Sure, it's fun to watch for a bit, but when you get to the third one, you're like, why is this still going on?
Yeah. That's a good point, because I did have that thought of, because I didn't know what I was jumping into when I first started it. You know, I was just like, oh, Pokemon Origins, 4 episodes, let's see what this is. And then when they're calling them Red and Blue, I'm like, oh, so we're doing the game, okay. And then at the beginning of each episode, where they kind of give you a summation of what occurred to get to this point, and then at that 4th episode when it talks about, oh, and I defeated the Elite Four, and I'm thinking, what? Where's this? Those are like some big battles. Why aren't we doing this? But that's a good point, because they weren't really integral to the overall story of Red and his development as a character.
And we were about to get the battle with Blue, which was also done in montage. And then the big battle with Mewtwo, where it's like, you've got the weighty stuff to do. To throw a dig in at a movie, it's part of why the third Hobbit movie sucked so bad, because it was just like 2 hours of a giant fight. I'm like, there's no emotional stakes to this. I don't care about any of this.
We refused to watch the third Hobbit movie.
If I could, I'd take them all out, but
Yeah. It was one of those situations, because I am very easy to please, right? So a lot of the times people have complaints about stuff. I'm like, oh, I kind of like that.
Well, I was going to say, you stand up for The Last Jedi, so there's evidence for that.
Yeah, exactly. and also, I just listened to your episode on Fallen Kingdom, and I just have to say, I came this close to canceling this episode and be like, nope, forget it. You're trashing on Fallen Kingdom. Get out of here. We're no longer friends.
I'm rocking a Jurassic Park shirt as we sit here.
There you go. Okay, so that was a side note.
No, definitely.
Yeah, but The Hobbit was one of those rare times where I'm actually walking away from it angry. Like, this sucks.
Well,
what are you doing, Peter Jackson? You suck.
Oh my gosh, like, you want to give that man the benefit. I seriously want him to get a chance to that's not the note he should go out on. Just like, Star Wars wise, and I know we're getting sidetracked. I would love George Lucas to get a chance to go out on a high note, especially because this current trilogy is terrible, because it's not a trilogy, and so many other things. But to give him credit where it's due, like, if I'm going to compare, like, say what you will about Revenge of the Sith, because a lot of it is bad, but there's a lot of good stuff in there. That final fight, especially the one between Obi-Wan and Anakin, had, like, such emotional weight. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Like, if the rest of the movie was this good, then I wouldn't have anything to complain about.
Yeah.
But there was a lot to complain about, and that's fair.
Okay, so what were we talking about? Oh,
emotional weight in battles in Pokemon.
Right. Yes, exactly. I think we beat that dead horse. So okay.
Or in this case, a friggin' because they don't die in battle. They pass out.
They faint. They faint.
So we beat that fainted Rapidash.
There you go. So I did have a few kind of, I don't want to say nitpicky stuff, but just kind of like inconsistencies.
That's fair.
That were like, okay, what's going on? So he bought his Magikarp, right? who's selling him the Magikarp? Is it somebody associated with like Team Rocket? Because isn't that what Team Rocket's all about? Like selling Pokemon?
That I think that is more that I didn't have a problem with. I'm like, oh, there's so much game references where it's like they did that at the beginning of the second episode where I'm like, oh, it's around the time he got the old rod, but in the game there was someone who suckered you into buying a Magikarp, and then it led to a side quest where you got the old rod. So I'm like, yes, it's just the joke of Magikarp being useless.
Okay.
All it does
Poor
is splash.
Magikarp.
Oh yeah, no.
Poor Magikarp.
Poor Magikarp. He evolves into Gyarados though, so it grows up. Sorry.
Grows up.
Grows up.
Gonna have to like bleep all these words out.
I know. I'm the problem today.
So there was another one. Okay, so like Team Rocket, man, I guess I didn't quite understand, and maybe okay. So let me preface this. I played the card game, watched some of the show with Ash, you know, not religiously, but enough. And I played Pokemon Platinum. Okay. So I just don't get like Team Rocket's motivation. Like, what are they trying to do? They're like, they took over this big tower for what? Just to hang out at the top floor? What? So they push a dude down the stairs and they're like, no, you can't come into Pokemon Tower because, you know, it's our base now. What are you going to do? I don't understand.
Right. So in the second one, that's in the second episode. I think, yeah, Team Rocket in the games, it's all about like basically being dirtbags. That's what they do. Their main MO.
It's their excuse.
It's their
excuse to.
So it's like, oh, this is where you mourn? Well, we're going to take over, and this is our base of operations now because we're evil. For evil's sake. Like, at that point,
exactly.
that is a fair criticism. I thought we were talking the Silphco episode, and the Silphco Tower in the third episode. I'm like, what? No, that was to get the Master Ball.
Yeah.
And then they're unstoppable.
No, I understood that.
No.
I understood that because that was kind of like, you know,
there's a logic there.
Power. You know, that was there was there's this craving for power, and this is a powerful item, so obviously it belongs to me because I want to be powerful. Or I should have it because I'm powerful. Yeah. But it was just that I'm like, what are you doing? You're just sitting in this tower. Yeah. In the dark with these goggles for what? I don't get what you're doing.
I think the motivation would have been like to catch, like, since even in the episode they talk about like the ghost type Pokemon that go around there, and then in the game in red, blue, green, and even yellow, like when you first go into the tower, you can't even see the ghost Pokemon. They just show up as a blur, and then you need the Silph Scope to see what kind of ghost Pokemon it is. So it would have been great if they had even included a line saying like, "Look, we're just trying to catch some good ghost Pokemon here." Like that would have made sense, but they didn't do that.
Yep, that would have made sense.
It was just, we're jerks.
Yeah. And man, I mean, good thing they like fight with their Pokemon because they went after Marowak and like beat Marowak to death, I guess.
They killed Marowak.
Like, what in the world? This is so awful.
I know.
And then they push the dude down the stairs, and so when Blue actually goes to fight them, it's like, well, phew, at least they're going after the Pokemon and not like getting out their electric sticks or whatever.
It's also really
they're not that evil.
Well, yeah, they show it in that episode. It's like, yeah, we got no problem making an example by killing this Cubone's mother and pushing a dude down a flight of stairs. But then, oh, you beat me? Shoot.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, okay, here you go. Like, wait, what?
Oh, man. So, yeah, I guess that was just some nitpicky things. I was like, what is going on? Why are they doing that? That doesn't make any sense. I guess I know, and I understand the point of that episode was, you know, the pathos and everything. So yeah, it was just like,
no, and that's fair. Okay. And I think we've discovered Team Rocket's line. They won't go into harming children or preteens. Mm-hmm. Everybody else is fair game.
Yeah, right. That old man, he's okay. We can push him down the stairs.
Yeah, no, that's no problem. And we'll laugh while we do it. But if it's a kid, we got to go with like, shoot.
And we'll kidnap this old man. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll kidnap, we'll murder, we'll abuse, but we won't mess with preteens.
Yeah. Yeah. It cracked me up on the last episode. Did you want to continue with that episode?
I had one slight nitpick from the third episode, but it's a minor one. It was just the interactions between Giovanni and Red. I found like Giovanni, they were having him go on the journey, and I'm like, I'm fine with the journey, but it also seems like a really rushed journey because we've only met him in this one episode. If we could have gotten him it would have been weird to tie him into the second one, because when you look at how these episodes are structured, they all make sense, but having his story condensed into one, it felt a little, that's where I'd be like, okay, that's a little bit rushed.
Yeah, I could see that. It would have been cool if they had hinted, like, maybe in shadow, in silhouette, like in episode 2, as him being the motivator behind his hooligans. So, yeah.
And which would have tied into the games.
Yeah.
Even further, yeah.
It cracks me up in the 4th episode. I kind of like busted out laughing. I was like, what? When Red wins against Blue, and then Professor Oak like is all of a sudden right there. He's like, congratulations. I was like, what? Wow, they're really rushing things. I mean, Professor Oak just shows right up. He like knew what was going to happen. But then they kind of explained it that,
I was on my way to see my failure of a nephew.
Yeah, Blue held the title for a while, so I was kind of on my way here. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, well, and that ties into Pokemon Red and like the games as well, where as soon as you win, like Professor Oak friggin' runs in. But it's still really funny pacing where it's just happened. It's almost like this emotional weighty moment, and then he busts in the room. Like,
he's like, congratulations!
Like, I'm right into my spiel. I've been waiting off to the side.
Yeah.
Where were you for me, Grandpa?
Following you this whole time.
Exactly. Like, where are you for me, Grandpa? He's more interesting.
Yep.
He grew. You didn't as much.
Yeah. I think the last scene when they're all sitting together and Red comments, he's like, wait, there's still Mew out there.
Yeah.
I think it would have been, and you see Mew, and that was fine, but I think it would have been better and kind of shows you that there's a continuing story.
Yeah.
More so if it's shown Red and Blue kind of running out the door, still in competition.
Yeah. What and they went for that, like, they almost went for that just with Blue saying stuff of like, oh, it should have been me, where it's like, they're showing Blue grow, but very slow.
Yeah.
And it still harks back to the competition, but if they had just looked, one of the things I loved about this show is even though they were competitive and Blue was very arrogant, you still saw like a good person there and almost like a brotherly friend relationship where they still looked out for each other. I'm with you, if they had looked up and smiled and didn't say anything and both just bolted, I would have been like, yeah, no, awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yep. That was all I had on kind of that. Did you have anything else that you wanted to cover?
No, not really. You covered everything. Like, if they wanted to do an updated version of the Poké-Rap, I would have been game, but it wouldn't have been necessary. It would have definitely been a very different tone than the rest of everything.
Yeah.
But I still would have been like, I'm in spades.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. All right, so let's kind of do a little bit more of a deep dive into some of what the show is portraying in regards to the overall conflicts, the worldview, kind of the philosophies and different things that are driving and motivating the characters. So, let's talk about Giovanni and Blue.
Okay, ooh, interesting.
Yes. So, Giovanni, let's talk about his arc, his character arc and episode. Because he's the boss of Team Rocket, right?
Yeah.
And his whole thing was power.
Oh, yeah.
And in his battle, if I'm going too fast, you can slow me down.
No.
In his battle with Red, he's like kind of commenting in his head, like, why am I so driven to, fight this kid? And, just kind of like, what is going on? I'm feeling these feelings that I haven't never felt before. Or, so it was kind of this whole idea of he had something as a kid first starting out on his Pokemon journey.
Yeah.
But somehow, like, lost that thing.
Yeah.
And Red now is kind of showing him or reminding him of that thing that he once had. Yeah. So what are your thoughts?
I like that a lot. That kind of thing can be shoehorned in to stuff too much. A non-Pokemon example is Guardians of the Galaxy 2, when suddenly Yondu is like to Rocket Raccoon, like, "You're me." I'm like, really? This is just in this movie. Whereas this, it made sense. Because Giovanni, they don't ever go into his backstory much, and he's always just like a bad dude. Not Emperor Palpatine level bad, or for Dragon Ball Z Frieza, or you'll do all the better references for anime than I will. Like, it worked. I liked that idea of seeing something in yourself. Like, sometimes our worst behavior, like, it's a common phrase, the things you don't like about yourself are the things that are going to annoy you, or the things that you wish you had are also going to annoy you. So seeing him realize, like, I used to be like this kid, I'm like, that's relatable. That's a really cool idea. And then you're going on the idea of, like, you've lost yourself. I'm curious about how he got from being Red to Giovanni.
Right.
If you want to do a prequel
basically
series on that, I'm in.
I would assume he was the one who started Team Rocket.
Yeah,
so it wasn't that he became the boss of Team Rocket, but he actually, that's what I would assume, that he started Team Rocket.
What hurt you, Giovanni? Like, that's what I want to know.
Exactly.
What hurt you? What broke you?
Exactly. And it's funny because we didn't get any interaction between him and Blue, even though they did fight.
Yeah.
They did battle.
Yeah.
But it was definitely Red who brought back something in Giovanni that he once had as a child. So,
and that's something they hark on throughout the show, where it's like, and I know we'll talk about when we talk about Blue, he's not doing anything necessarily wrong, but it's how he's doing things. Because with Red, it's just, oh my gosh. With Red, it's just this, like, earnestness love that for Pokemon and everything that's just radiating from him.
Yeah.
He's just like, no, I'm in this, but it's not even anything he really wanted to go for in the first episode. He's like, well, no, I want to go and just complete the Pokedex.
Yeah.
But then he fell in love with it as he kept going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Giovanni and Blue are definitely two peas in a pod.
Yeah.
They both only saw their Pokemon as tools to gain what they wanted, which, in Giovanni's mind was power and probably status, I would say, too.
Yeah.
And same with Blue. He wanted that status of being the best Pokemon trainer and the Pokemon League champion.
But he wasn't as cold about it. Like, similar, you're spot on in the observations, but he's not as callous as Giovanni is about it. Like,
right, but you can kind of see it.
Yeah.
Because, in episode 2, he's scared of the ghost and runs away, and it's only when Red is confronting the ghost that he kind of is like, oh, here's my chance to kind of advance ahead of Red and go after Team Rocket. And what was his motivation to go after Team Rocket was to be the one recognized as kicking Team Rocket out.
Yeah.
And then in episode 4, the very beginning when they're like, oh, and then we rescued this woman.
That was the third episode, yeah.
Third episode, okay, yeah.
Sorry.
So, yep, that's okay. So they rescue the secretary who escaped from Sylph, and it was kind of a quick, story point. But Red gave Blue the task of escorting the woman away to safety. Yeah. And Blue's like, I ain't gonna do that.
Yeah. Very nonchalant, like his persona, like, nah, I'm too cool for school.
Yeah. So you kind of see Blue following that path, but then there's these glimpses of, no, he could still kind of, go the right way, or, do the right thing out of pure honor's sake instead of, self glorification.
Well, you saw that in how he still helped Red. Like, at the end of the day, he's like, he sees the interaction with Red and the kid, and it's almost like, there's no glory for me here, I can bounce, but he still gave Red the Sylph Scope. Yep. And then after Red, like, grabbed him and was like, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? He's like, he resigns to it. He's like, that, when I'm watching that, I'm like, that's a bit of a humanizing moment. I think we all have those moments where we're in over our heads. So then whatever it is, we're like, we don't want to do it. And then it's, even though we know what's the right thing to do, and then he's like, all right, I'll do it. I'll take her.
Yeah.
And then it's not even like, fine. It's just under his breath where you're like, he knows what the right thing is, but it's not always what he wants to do.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So. Good. Anything else to add to that?
It's weird. I as much as this is like a perfect in a bottle miniseries, as we're talking about it, I'm like, I wouldn't mind it to keep going just to see how they flush out the characters. Just because they don't. Like, that's the thing. In the games, you only ever really get a loose follow-up on Red in Pokemon Gold and Silver, but that's just like, he eventually was defeated, but then he moved to the top of a mountain where he was the final boss of the game. And then you had to beat you had to have 16 gym badges and to beat the Elite Four, and then you go fight him. Like, he was the Mewtwo of that game, but there's no real follow-up on, or I think Blue's maybe in the Elite Four maybe, but there's no real follow-up, so I'm like, I like follow-up. I'd love to see what happens to these characters.
Yeah.
I'd love to see if Giovanni actually did change.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, good. All right, so we'll go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll be back after this important message.
Awesome.
All right. Welcome back. Okay, so this is the part that this portion is what sets us apart from other podcasts, specifically in the anime scene. What we tried to do is actually comment on what the conflict and the philosophy and what it was teaching us, and what the Bible has to say about that. So we want to kind of bring in a bit of scripture for our listeners. I hope you stick through this. If you're not a Christian, I hope you stick through this because I think you'll find it interesting. I hope you'll find it interesting. All right. Here's what I've got written a little bit to kind of get the conversation started. Blue comments how he doesn't understand. So in the 4th episode, Blue comments how he doesn't understand why he lost to Red since he raised his Pokemon perfectly. He's chided by Professor Oak for his lack of love and trust for his Pokemon, giving that as the reason why he lost his shortly held title of Pokemon League champion to Red. So that got me thinking about a couple things, okay? Now, I'm not saying that this is what the intention of the directors in writing this. I'm just saying that as Christians, we should have the mind of Christ, and so we should always try to bring in what the Bible has to say about the morality or the philosophies that are being touted in these stories. Because we are learning, even though we're not consciously learning, we're subconsciously learning and pulling things in. So we should be disciplining our minds to bring it back to the Bible and what Scripture has to say. So that being said, so this got me thinking about a couple things. First, in 1 Corinthians 13, commonly known as the love chapter, Paul begins to talk about love.
Yeah.
So in 1 Corinthians, I'm going to kind of pull that up here. This is commonly referred to as the love chapter, and if you've ever done any sort of like Christian counseling or dating or anything like this, this is always kind of yeah. This is always referenced, or you're meant to read it together or whatever. But if you look at the context is not in matters of marriage and dating. It's actually in regards to the church body and how it functions together with the spiritual gifts working together. And so I wanted to kind of emphasize that because Paul we tend to break up the Bible with the chapter and verse designations, right? So in chapter 12, the very last thing he says is, after he goes through all this whole list of spiritual gifts and everything, he says, I will show you still a more excellent way. And then chapter 13 starts.
Right.
So then he says, if I speak in the tongues of men and angels, but have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give away all I have, and if I deliver up my body to be burned, but have not love, I gain nothing.
Yep.
So then he goes into describing what love looks like and how it works. And I think that's important for us as Christians and believers to remember when dealing with each other, whether it's the local body or the what you would call the invisible church. So interactions between brothers and sisters online, social media. Here's your rant.
Gosh, yeah.
I'm going to rant here.
Go for it. Go for it. Yes.
We are very graceless and very unloving to each other. And we don't recognize the need for that love in dealing with each other. And I think that's something that we need to remember in dealing, in talking to each other online, even if it's rebuking, correcting, teasing,
Yeah.
we tend to tease each other. But all of us are given spiritual gifts to serve each other and to glorify Christ in the church. And the underlying thing that should be driving those spiritual gifts is love. A love for each other and a love for God.
Absolutely.
So that's the first thing. Do you have any comments before I carry on?
No, you absolutely nailed it on the head. I love that you brought that up. And yeah, you and I even talked about it earlier in this episode. You need love in that rebuke, in that teasing. If it's not, then we need to be then we need to be called out, because then our hearts are wrong in the matter. It's a lost principle to think about. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. That is legit. Now, sometimes some truths aren't nice, but there's a loving way to say it. Yeah.
And then Paul even talks about in that chapter, the honoring of truth. Love. Oh yeah. Love actually honors truth. So
exactly.
And one thing I like about Apologia Church, listener, if you haven't heard of them, I would recommend their YouTube channel and their podcast.
Nice.
But there's a lot of videos on their YouTube channel of Jeff Durbin, who's one of the elders of Apologia Church, interacting with Mormons, atheists, a lot of unbelievers of different stripes and different lifestyles. But the one thing he always emphasizes is, I love you. Like, he says that over and over again. And I think that is something that all of us should kind of take to heart and be like, am I saying that not only, in my thought process and witnessing, but am I actually saying that, to people? But I think it's important to say it often.
Absolutely.
To remind who we're talking to that even if we have disagreements, that there should be a profession of love for each other, and a reminder of that. So that was to the believers and to Christians. Secondly,
love that rant. Loved it.
Okay.
I will co-sign.
Okay. So I said that there was two things, right, that this got me thinking about. So secondly, the story of the rich young ruler in Matthew 19, verses 16 through 22. It's also found in Mark 10 and Luke 18, but I'm going to read from Matthew. And if I'm reading from the English Standard Version, for those of you who need to know that.
ESV represent.
So, starting in verse 16. And behold, a man came up to him saying, Teacher. Oh, we gotta do a voice. Teacher, what good deed must I do to have eternal life? Does he sound like Giovanni? Does that sound like Giovanni?
Yeah, we'll roll with that.
Okay.
It's deep enough. It's working. It's working.
Okay. All right. Teacher, what good deed must I do to have eternal life? And he, being Jesus, said to him, Why do you ask me about what is good? There is only one who is good. If you would enter life, keep the commandments. He said to him, so the rich young ruler, Which ones? And Jesus said, You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness, honor your father and mother, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. The young man said to him, All these I have kept. What do I still lack? Jesus said to him, If you would be perfect, go, sell what you possess and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven, and come follow me. When the young man heard this, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. This is an awesome text.
Oh, yeah.
Because it shows us two very specific things about this young man. So, according to the young man, he kept the law perfectly. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is Jesus lays out the last 6 of the 10 commandments when in regards to our relationship to each other. And then he said, I've done all these things. And then Jesus replies, okay, well, go sell all your possessions and come follow me. But we know from the rich young ruler, his reaction to Jesus' command to come follow him. That was the command. Sell all you have and come follow me. That the rich young ruler loved his wealth more than he loved God because he was unwilling to give up his riches to follow Jesus. Mm-hmm. And Jesus makes the distinction in the Gospels, if you continue to read the Gospels, that the 2 greatest commandments is love God with all your heart, soul, and mind and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And he was unwilling to give up what he had, what his true love was, which was his possessions, power, wealth, status. He was not willing to give that up for what Jesus commanded, which was to follow him. So he did not have a love for God. He did not have a love for his neighbor. Mm-hmm. And so we know that he went away sorrowful, and what's the end of that story?
Yeah, we don't know.
Probably not good.
Yeah, no. There's enough to infer.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, for those who do not know God, your good works cannot get you eternal life. You will fall short. Mm-hmm. Love for God means you must turn from those things that you are putting before God. Possessions, your own good works, status. Repent and believe the gospel. Turn from trusting in your own righteousness and trust in the righteousness of Jesus Christ. And this actually kind of ties in. This is going to be a little bit of a side comment. But this actually ties into my own testimony, and I don't think I've actually ever shared that on the podcast.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah. I was the rich young ruler. I had the perfect attendance. I made a profession of faith several times, to make sure it really stuck.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But I had the, I didn't lie, I didn't cheat, I didn't steal, didn't disobey my parents. They literally will tell the story of how I was never spanked as a kid because I was a good kid. I was a good girl. And I was involved in soul winning and door-to-door ministry. When I was dating, I didn't let my boyfriend kiss me, and I did all these things that I should be doing in order to brag about my own goodness and my own righteousness.
You were hitting the check marks on the list.
Absolutely. Yeah. Never wore pants, never smoked a cigarette, never drank alcohol. Oh yeah. All the above. You name it.
Yeah.
I did it. But it was in youth ministry, in youth group. It was kind of funny, and I get teased. I got teased about it, and rightly so, but it's okay. So the youth pastor was like, okay, for the next 4 weeks, we're gonna have one of you guys, whoever wants to do it, stand up and just give your testimony in front of the whole youth group. So I was like, oh yes, I'll volunteer for that because I'm perfect. I'll give you my testimony. Well, the week before I was scheduled to give my testimony, one of the other teens gave his testimony. And it was moving because there was a life event that was life-threatening that happened and kind of brought him to his knees and made him realize that, life is short. And, so it was one of those moving testimonies. And not everybody has the same testimony, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But the one common denominator is that we all need Jesus. So as he's telling his testimony, everybody's kind of crying because he was a staple in the youth group. Like, he grew up in this church where I was kind of more of the newcomer to this church. So all of his friends are kind of crying because they were involved in that portion of his life. And I'm just kind of sitting there like, okay. But the youth pastor got up after that, and he made the comment of, just because you've been sitting in these pews and in church all your life doesn't make you saved, and you can't actually be saved from your sin until you realize you're a sinner. And as soon as he said that, oh my goodness, that the Holy Spirit completely crushed me.
Grace-filled pile driver.
Just absolutely crushed me, because it was, even though the kid's testimony wasn't necessarily about being in church all of his life and stuff, it was more of a life event type thing. Mm-hmm. What the youth pastor said was like specifically to me. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting in the front row, and I just immediately break out into a sweat and start shaking, because I knew, I'm like, I am not a believer. I have been living a false life all my life. I have never admitted to my sin. I've always, stacked up my good works to show God how good I was. And man, I tell you what, that was the worst hour and a half of my life, because I waited till the traditional invitational after the sermon to run out of that pew and get to the altar.
Yeah.
And cry out to Jesus. But I was that rich young ruler. Mm-hmm. I was the person who kept the law perfectly, but loved my own works, my own status above God. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that kind of harkens back. So let's bring it back around to, the show.
Yeah.
I think that goes back to Giovanni, how he realized he had done, Giovanni and Blue in some sense.
Yeah.
Where they had done everything perfectly. They were both kind of in the same mindset of gaining status, and to Giovanni's point, wealth, and then forgetting that they don't have what it truly takes, what truly counts, which is love. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there you go.
Thank you for sharing all that. Seriously, thank you. That was wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, I think there's a point where Blue is like, I studied all the I studied all the teams and weaknesses, so I figured out what's going to make the perfect team. Mm-hmm. But then at the same point, it's like Red with his team, and when you see his Pokemon, for me, I'm watching it as like, why is Scyther on there?
Yeah, right.
Like, not knocking Scyther's fine, but even harken back to his first battle, where it's like he's using what he's got. He's throwing Rattata up against an Onix.
Yeah.
But as the battle's going, you see how much he cares for his Pokemon, and he believes in them. and it's his love that's fueling the battle. Whereas with Blue, he's got the knowledge, he's done the study, but he's not living it. So many Christians, myself at points as well, as much as I wish it wasn't the case, you can be like, well, I've studied the Bible, I know what it says, I can fall back on that. But if your heart's not living it, there's a marked difference.
Oh yeah. There's
a huge difference. So that's a good reminder to all of us. I might not have been the rich young ruler, but I think another biblical story we can all relate to is the prodigal son. And we look at the prodigal and we're focused on him, but at Urbana they mention a person preaching about the prodigal son was also like, sometimes we like to think we're the older brother, but the older brother has just as much sin, pride, and all that, whereas the person that we need to emulate the most and try to learn from the most out of the story is the father, who's running out like buck naked, basically, and he doesn't care. He's there to love his sons and accept them and help them and mold them and help them grow. Yeah.
I like how you said sons.
Yes.
With a plural, because like you said, we tend to forget about the older brother and what we can learn from the older brother as well as the younger brother. Yep,
exactly.
Absolutely.
To tie it into the show, at times we can be like, oh, we're Blue. We're not even intending to have his arrogance, but it's I know what I'm doing. I've studied for this. I've prepared for this. I'm good. Whereas then you got Red, the novice, like, who might be novice in some of this stuff, but he's got this earnest fire. Like, he's got this earnest fire and passion. And in this case, it's for Pokemon and not for Jesus, but there's correlating relations, as I'm sure we'll talk about more. But there's some really good stuff there. And again, that's something I know I've said to you, and I've said to Hector. That's something I love that, like, you guys do and Love Thy Nerd does, where we can see how there's all these biblical examples in these things that frankly probably aren't intending it. But there's a lot of things we got that we can pick this up from and seek godly wisdom and encouragement from. So again, thank you for doing this.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't have anything else.
Okay.
Yeah. That was it. I'm at the end of my notes.
Oh, okay. So. The thing I'd like to toss out is, as I'm seeing some scriptural stuff, it's, again, love. And in the case, I noticed a lot of sacrificial love throughout the show. I get the prime example being Marowak, sending Cubone away. As much as we like to, like, imagine animals wouldn't do that, when you think about animals in the real world, like, no. They don't have any concept of that. Like, a parent would be protective of their child, but there's also stuff in the animal kingdom where it's like, there's also survival. So it was that. It was Red actually, like, going out of his way to reunite Cubone with its mom, and once it realized what the ghost was, it's like, we don't need to battle. And he's not doing any of this for glory. In the battle with Mewtwo and Charizard, like, he sees Charizard falling and he jumps under.
I know. He goes right under, and I'm like,
how are you not dead? He's like, I'm fine. Yeah. I'm like, you definitely have a cracked rib. If this was real life, you're dead. You are crushed.
Yeah, exactly.
And to give as much as I'll poke fun at the long-running kids show, like, they do that stuff in there as well. In the first episode, which has been recreated in a great movie, Pokemon I Choose You, because the Japanese movies now are kind of in, not remaking territory, but abridged version territory, and it's interesting and good. Like, Ash would take a blow for Pikachu. Like, Ash did everything he could. Charmander, where if the flame goes out on the tail, Charmander's dead. Like, he's doing everything he can to keep it alive. And he later does it with his Charizard, who evolved grew up too fast and resented Ash. Because he's like, I'm too cool for you. Which Charizard was amazing, so it's kind of accurate. But he wouldn't listen to Ash. And wow, there's a correlation with kids growing up too fast and not listening to their parents.
Right.
Oh my gosh. But it's something that's there where it's like this sacrificial love, which I wasn't even looking for it at first, but then when I'm catching it, I'm catching it a lot. And it's like, that's something we sometimes have issues doing for people. And in this show, this character just selflessly does stuff for people and Pokemon, which for us, it's like, you're a cat owner. I know how much you'll do whatever you can to take care of your kitty, just like I will.
Speaking of,
exactly, just like for us with Luna. But at the same point, like it's a Pokemon that's not his. It's just Pokemon and animals in general. He has this love where it's like, this dude is modeling love and also like sacrificing potentially financial gain. Sacrifice it, like he's dealing with people who throw people down the stairs. They might not just be like, oh shoot, you beat me. Like there's a lot there where I'm like, dang, like I don't think you're going for any of this, but there's some depth there. So there's a lot of good stuff in this show beyond just the, oh hey, here's a great callback to the Game Boy games and all that. Like there's some deep matters.
Yeah, and it's funny because I come from, I tried to train my mind, with the Bible, and the Bible tells us in Romans 1 that we all know that God exists. We are without excuse. And we're created in the image of God. So we, even in our fallen state, we reflect certain attributes of God. And here we have a, for lack of a better term, pagan people group, Japanese people. Absolutely. And they're writing these stories that are reflecting what the Bible defines is what love is. Love is sacrificial. Greater love has no man than this, than that he lay down his life for his friends. So, even in a pagan-minded, a pagan ethnic group, they are reflecting the image of God in their storytelling by adding in these elements of sacrificial love and biblical love. So yeah, really cool stuff. Absolutely.
And that's the extent.
That's it. Yeah. That is awesome. Yeah. So listener, I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions or comments or anything, you can reach out to me at redeemedotaku@gmail.com. I'd love to have a conversation with you and continue this conversation. I hope you do that, listener. So
yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So now we're kind of wrapping things up. Here's how I like to rate the reviews that I have or the shows that I have. So is this a Redeemed Otaku masterpiece or nah? My rating, overall, very enjoyable. Made me want to break out my DS and play Platinum again. I would recommend this for any Pokemon enthusiast, and it can be enjoyed by any age group. Even though it kind of deals with that death with Marowak, I think that the sooner a child learns about that, the better. Yeah. And I think it can be taught in a safe manner in shows like this. So, it gave us some good points of discussion in the theology segment, which is always a bonus. And so my rating is that this has been the best episode we have ever done. Yes. Awesome. So how about some closing comments for you on the show? Anything to add to that?
I thought the show was excellent. Again, I'm not somebody who's super into anime, although the more I hear from you guys, the more I'm like, all right, I got to check this out. I got to give it more of a shot. I'm at the point now where it's like, it's similar to video games. If it's something where it's already based on something I have a love for, then definitely color me interested. But in this series in particular, I want more. Give me more. Most of the time with shows and stuff I like, as much as I want more, I'm also like, I don't know. For every great thing, there's a Batman and Robin like right around the corner, or Sam Raimi original 3 Spider-Man movies, or whatever. Like, let's be cautious. Whereas this, I'm like, no, if you can do that again, give me more. I will be Homer with the donut thing. Just like Pokemon Origin all day. Yeah, no, I really, really enjoyed it. I think you can be of any age group, and you can be a Poke novice for this. There's the aesthetic of the show is great for people who did grow up with it, who remember the games, or even the later games, because some of the stuff is still the same. But it's a great gateway. It's stuff where if you've grown up with it, there's the deep cut references. If you're a kid, the only thing might be like, oh, I thought they said their names instead of roar. But there's the rest of the stuff. And they're doing stuff in the death in a good way, where it's not going to be as traumatic as Mufasa dying.
Right.
Because every time I see that, I'm like, yo.
Start breaking out into tears.
Oh my gosh. Bambi's mom doesn't do the same thing for me, because weirdly in the movie, the rest of his life gets a lot better after it. I know that's not what they intended, but 2 minutes later, he's the prince of the woods. He's got his girlfriend and everything's kosher. It's like, whoa. I don't think you meant to do this, but with this, it's like there's closure, there's sadness. It explores all those things well, without the weird way I just put it. Where, I think we've nailed the nail on the head here. I'm trying to figure out a Pokemon way with it, but I can't words anymore.
We nailed that coffin shut.
Or, no, you don't nail a coughing, but I can't figure out any more Pokemon puns. I'm trying.
But
oh, jeez.
Oh, this is awesome. This is awesome. All right. Well, you heard it here, guys. Go check it out for sure if you haven't watched it.
Absolutely.
All right. So, yeah, what do I do next? Oh, okay. All right, so follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Join the Facebook group Reformed Anime Hub if you are interested in talking more about theology and anime, or if you just want a safe group to talk about anime without all the junk. You can join us there. Make sure when you do join, you fill out the questions, and you can always put in there that I sent you. All right. And again, you can email us at redeemedotaku@gmail.com, and you can leave us a voicemail at 773-980-6088. All right, Chris, it is your turn. Where can we find you? Plug anything you want to plug. You got it. What you want? What you got?
What I got. All right, so you can find me on Instagram at 2099OCR. You can find One Cross Radio on Facebook. The podcast is where most podcasts are, with the exception of Lisbon, actually. We are on Podbean, iTunes, Overcast. I recently found Spotify, which I was like, oh, right on. That's awesome.
Cool.
You can always hit up the website, 2099 One Cross Street at gmail.com. That's the email, actually. So you can find us there. But the website is 2099onecrossstreet.com. Comments are disabled there right now, so if you want to drop me a comment, please do. Hit up the email, that'd be great. Or if you comment on the Facebook page or anything, I'm happy to get back to you, because I love the dialogue. It's a lot of fun. Actually, through comments is how this happened. Like, us interacting over Instagram, and then it's been so much fun. And I'm going to put up an invitation out. I would love to have you on One Cross Radio sometime.
Oh, awesome. I would love to to be there with you. So yeah,
awesome,
excellent,
sweet.
We'll definitely have you back on the show.
Oh, I'd love it.
Would welcome you back on the show. Yeah.
Thank you. It has been such a blast. I've never been a guest, and this has been so much fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for all your thoughts. And it was awesome. I loved it. Awesome. And thank you to all of our listeners for listening, because I tend to forget that I'm doing this for people to actually listen to. So I must thank the listeners who are listening to the show.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that's all I had. Until next time, redeem your love for anime by turning back to the truth found only in God's Word. Say goodbye, Chris.
Peace out. Take care.